And we keep our focus on the big developments coming in with regards to US's action in Venezuela. The focus of the world is on Venezuela. The US conducted a surgical strike on its president and his wife at night. Now, we are accessing a fresh video of Maduro and his wife in the US court. So viewers, take a look at these pictures on your screens. These are the latest visuals coming in. Reports are suggesting that Maduro and Venezuela's first lady were captured during a surprise raid by US forces after being pulled from their bedroom. So these are the latest reports. This is the first image that we've accessed. There was a picture that was also released by US President Donald Trump. In that image, if you remember, viewers, Maduro appeared blindfolded, wearing soundproof headphones, handcuffed. He was holding a plastic bottle of water. He was in a sweatsuit. He was on board a US warship. Now take a look at these pictures. These are the latest images that are now coming in. Maduro will be prosecuted on narco-terrorism charges. We are also getting you these visuals of the Venezuelan president and his wife in the custody of US authorities. The duo have been brought to the United States. On your screens are the latest images coming in. This is a fresh video of Maduro and his wife in the custody of US authorities. Unprecedented developments spanning out. We have both Srinjoy and Rishabh joining us on this broadcast. Srinjoy, what a start to 2026. The United States has, what many analysts are calling, has almost executed a regime change of sorts. As we look at these pictures that are coming in of Maduro and his wife, the latest video that's coming in, what's your analysis of all that has transpired in the last 24 hours?
There are two important words here. You've already mentioned regime change. And the other word, of course, is nation building. While President Trump has not used that word as yet, he has spoken about running Venezuela. Now, as far as regime change is concerned, first and foremost, yes, it was a successful military operation. And yes, Maduro has been captured by the American troops. He and his wife are in America. As you rightly said, they are being tried for narco-terrorism. All that is fine. But if you're looking at regime change, then let's not forget that the Vice President Rodriguez, is now interim president. So if Venezuela has another president already, and she is supported by her ruling council, then is there going to be another regime change? Is there going to be another military operation? That is something that has to be looked at, particularly because the first point ties up with the second. If you want regime change followed by the equivalent of nation building, then you are wanting to put your own people in place in Caracas. So are you going to do that? If you're going to do that, and whoever they are, whether they're American, whether they're Venezuelan, whether they are from third countries, then you will have to deal with the fact that Vice President Rodriguez is now the interim president. And she has the support of the ruling council.
Right.
So that is the second point. How is this going to happen? These are two issues before President Trump. If he had said that, fine, we've done our job, we have got the president, we are going to try him, end of story. But that's not the case.
Absolutely.
Because he's already spoken about oil.
And
he has spoken about...
Srinjoy, it might for now seem like, a thriller that's unfolding, but this is real-world geopolitics. The President of the United States has confirmed that US forces carried out strikes in Venezuela, that Nicolas Maduro has been detained, and we are seeing the visuals, the footage. Maduro and his wife were flown out of Venezuela. They landed at the Stewart Air National Guard base in New York, from where Maduro was, moved by a helicopter to the New York City. He was then taken to a DEA facility in Manhattan and finally then shifted to Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. Donald Trump like we've been mentioning, like we've been showing our pictures, had also posted a photograph of Maduro where he was seen blindfolded on board a U.S. warship. And then comes the big declaration that United States, as per Donald Trump, will now run Venezuela until there's safe and proper judicious transition. So this is in simple terms, both Srinjoy and Rishabh, that a foreign power is claiming control over another country, and the context must be understood, because Venezuela is not a failed state. It is, yes, Maduro is controversial, authoritarian, but is still the sitting president. So right now, here's what Donald Trump said.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
And there you heard it. Venezuela also sits on one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and that is why there are analysts across the world who are asking one question. Is this about democracy, or is this about oil, power, and control? There's more breaking news coming in. Venezuela Supreme Court now, viewers, this is the latest update. Venezuela Supreme Court has ordered its Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, to assume the interim presidency. And now, that's what the court has now stepped in. Let me go across to Rishabh to get the latest update. Fast-paced developments coming in. Before I come to you, Rishabh, what has Delcy Rodriguez said? Let's listen in.
Exigimos la inmediata liberación del presidente Nicolás Maduro y de su esposa Cilia Flores. Se activa toda Venezuela y el decreto que ya fue suscrito por el presidente Maduro, único presidente de Venezuela. Nosotros estamos listos para defender a Venezuela. Nosotros estamos listos para defender nuestros recursos naturales que deben ser para el desarrollo nacional.
Rishabh, so the court in Venezuela has asked the vice president to assume the role of interim presidency, and that's what Srinjoy was talking about. So while the U.S. president says we are going to run Venezuela till things are set right, what does it mean for politics across the world? Also in Venezuela, now that the courts have stepped in and have asked the vice president to assume the role of interim presidency, what's going to happen next?
Well, Sagarika, if we talk about last 30 years, say, US has invaded Afghanistan, US has invaded Iraq, there have been invasions in Syria as well, but none of these examples show that US has taken the regime in its own hand. US has definitely backed one regime over other in these countries, and we have seen Afghanistan, Iraq, or for that matter Syria as well, where the domestic regime has taken over, different from the one that was invaded. Here in Venezuela, for the first time, US President said that we will control Venezuela till there is a time, a good time for that matter, for transition, because we do not want to get into a position where we are facing similar issues with the different regime. But Venezuela is very clear. We have a functional government. Yes, you have taken out our president and the first lady, but the vice president now has been asked by the Supreme Court of Venezuela to immediately take charge as acting president and, undertake all the responsibilities of presidency. So whether US will now put boots on ground or not, that is something that will be very interesting to see from here on.
All right. Let's also tell you about how, there are multiple reactions coming in, sharp reactions. The world is completely divided in the latest. We have the New York City's new mayor who has condemned the U.S.'s attack on Venezuela. Zoran Mamdani has said that, and I quote from what he said, I was briefed this morning on the U.S.'s military capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, as well as their planned imprisonment in federal custody here in New York City. Unilaterally attacking a sovereign nation is an act of war and a violation of federal and international laws. Here's what Zoran Mamdani has to say.
I was briefed by my first deputy mayor, my chief of staff, my chief counsel, the police commissioner, as well as other members of my team. I called the president and spoke with him directly to register my opposition to this act and to make clear that it was an opposition based on being opposed to a pursuit of regime change, to the violation of federal and international law, and a desire to see that be consistent each and every day.
And we are now going to take you through the post of how world leaders are reacting to US's unprecedented operation. Multiple posts coming in from leaders across the globe. But before that, there's also an update as per reports in the strikes that were carried out by the United States in Venezuela. The latest reports are suggesting that at least 40 people have lost their lives. But now it is Belarus. What is Belarus saying? The Belarusian side is reaffirming its unwavering support for the legitimate government of Venezuela and also joins the call for an urgent convening of the United Nations Security Council, which bears primary responsibility for maintaining global peace. The Republic of Belarus emphasizes that the right of Venezuelan people to determine their own future is inviolable. No form of external interference, particularly through force, can be justified. So here they're taking a stand against the US's action, saying no form of external interference, particularly through force, can be justified. This is what Belarus has to say. China and Russia, too, are condemning the actions of the United States. Now, China says that China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the US's blatant use of force against a sovereign state and action against its president. Such hegemonic acts of the United States seriously violate international law and Venezuela's sovereignty and also threatens peace and security in Latin America and the Caribbean region. China firmly opposes it. We call on the United States to abide by international law and the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and stop violating other countries' sovereignty and security. China strongly condemns what has happened. Russia, too, has taken a position. Russia says, in view of the confirmed reports that Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his spouse being in the United States, we strongly urge U.S. leadership to reconsider their position and also release the legitimately elected president of the sovereign country and his spouse. So Russia, while is now urging the United States to release Maduro. Mark Carney also says that one of the first actions taken by Canada's new government in March 2025 was to impose additional sanctions on Nicolás Maduro's brutally oppressive and criminal regime, unequivocally condemning his grave breaches of international peace and security, gross and systematic human rights violations and corruption. Canada has not recognized the illegitimate regime of Maduro since it stole the 2018 election. The Canadian government therefore welcomes the opportunity of freedom, of democracy, of peace and prosperity for the Venezuelan people. Canada has long supported a peaceful, negotiated and Venezuelan-led transition process that respects the democratic will of Venezuelan people, in keeping with our long-standing commitment to upholding the rule of law, sovereignty and human rights. Canada calls on all parties to respect international laws. We stand by the people of Venezuela. We stand by their sovereign right to decide and build their future in peaceful and democratic manner. And Giorgia Meloni also says, I follow the developments in Venezuela since the very first evolutions. Italy, together with the main international partners, has never recognized Maduro's self-proclaimed electoral victory, condemning the regime's acts of repression, and has always supported the Venezuelan people's aspiration to a democratic transition. Consistent with Italy's historic position, the government believes that external military action is not the part to put an end to totalitarian regimes, but at the same time considers legitimate an intervention of of a defensive nature against hybrid attacks on its own security, as in the case of state entities that fuel and favor narco trafficking. We continue to follow with particular attention the situation of the Italian community in Venezuela, whose security constitutes the government's absolute priority. So here are the reactions that are coming in from world powers, from global leaders. Keir Starmer now says the UK has long supported a transition of power in Venezuela. We regarded Maduro as an illegitimate president and we shed no tears about the end of his regime. Then Keir Starmer reiterates his support for international law this morning. The UK government will discuss the evolving situation with counterparts in the United States in days ahead as we seek a safe and peaceful transition to a legitimate government that reflects the will of the Venezuelan people. So here global leaders, yes, are divided, and then more reactions also coming in. Anthony Albanese says that the Australian government is monitoring developments in Venezuela. We urge all parties to support dialogue and diplomacy in order to secure regional stability and prevent escalation. Australia has long held concerns about the situation in Venezuela, including the need to respect democratic principles, human rights and fundamental freedoms. We continue to support international law and a peaceful democratic transition in Venezuela that reflects the will of the Venezuelan people. Australians in Venezuela who need assistance can contact the 24/7 emergency consular assistance team. So world powers have taken a position here. Srinjoy is with us. Srinjoy, the larger question that many are asking, are we looking at a new precedence that has been set by the United States? You've seen how world leaders have reacted to the developments. Most of them, while there are many who criticize Maduro's totalitarian ways, but at the same time, there are questions that are being raised on the way United States executed this operation.
Very nuanced positions from the British, the Italians, and even the Australians. Now, these are all allies of America. We are not talking Belarus, we are not talking China or Russia. Now, see what the Italians have said, or even the British have said. They are saying that, well, or even the Canadians, we don't like Maduro. We don't approve of Maduro. We don't like his autocratic ways. But there, in all these statements, there is a but. That's very important. And the but is couched in many in different kinds of language. It's all diplomatese. But at the end of the day, the point that is being made is we don't like Maduro, we don't like what he did, but has America done the right thing? That's the question that Starmer, Meloni, Albanese, Carney, all these people are not saying this directly, but they are raising it in a slightly nuanced manner. Absolutely. That we have nothing to do with Maduro. We are not fond of him at all. But has America done the right thing? That's a question that is being raised very discreetly. You have to read between the lines. You have to read these statements very clearly to know that they are a little troubled.
Absolutely, and rightly so. Let's also tell our viewers about the politics